Hello there, everybody. This is Gerald Snivy, and welcome to my first ever First Impressions video. The game I'm going to be looking at is Final Fantasy XV. My impressions of the game are going to be coming solely from my playtime and my experiences from the demo of this game, Final Fantasy XV Episode Duscae. I think that's how you say it, Duscae? Whatever, let's move on. For this video, I'm going to be covering the game in 6 different categories and then give you all my final verdict. The first will be presentation, gameplay, music and sound, AI, camera, and things that need to be improved. The reason why I'm choosing to do this in this format is because I feel like this is what works best. If you have any suggestions on how I can do first impressions better, please let me know in the comments section down below. But enough about that, let's go ahead and get started with the first category. When it comes to presentation, I'm going to be looking at the way the game is presented, meaning I'm looking at graphics and I'm also looking at detail of textures, amongst other things that involve making the game look pretty. And my god, the graphics in this game, especially for a demo, are fan-friggin-tastic and mind-blowing. I mean, seriously, take a look at like the first scene in the game. Check this out.
Aren't we lucky?
When I first saw that scene, my mind was completely blown. I mean, really. The graphics are incredible. They are incredibly gorgeous in every way. From the blades in the grass to the sky itself, the trees, the fur and scale on some of the enemies, the water, you name it. They are that well detailed. Another thing I love is the lighting. The lighting works incredibly well. The sun acts like it should. It's shiny, it's bright. Holy guacamole, it's almost like real life. I am dead serious when I say this too. These are by far the best graphics I have ever seen in a video game. Now that I'm done talking about graphics and overall presentation, let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay for many people, including myself, is the meat and potatoes when it comes to a video game. That is the deciding factor of what makes a game fun and what makes it a piece of junk. Every Final Fantasy game uses a battle system known as the turn-based battle system. Final Fantasy XV does away with this system completely and uses a system similar to what has been used in Kingdom Hearts. So in other words, it's real-time combat. The battle system in the demo presented before us does have a bit of a learning curve. Thankfully, this learning curve isn't too extreme, and it's pretty easy to get down once you get used to all the controls and what you have to do. Since this is real-time combat, you'll have to know when to take on the enemy and when to make a hasty retreat. Taking on a large group of enemies is typically not a good idea, unless you know for a sheer fact that you are going to win the fight, and sometimes it just comes down to plain old dumb luck. But hey, I like this system and I welcome it with open arms. Now that I'm finished talking about the battle system, let's talk about controls. Controls are very straightforward. I was able to pick up the game and play it very quickly. And for any of you who are longtime Final Fantasy fans, I'm sure you'll be able to do the same thing. There is one other thing that I haven't gone over, and that is battling and target acquisition. I'll go over this later. Let's move on to the next category. Let's talk about music and sound now. Many of the past Final Fantasy games are known for having awesome soundtracks and are incredibly memorable. From Sephiroth's theme to Otherworld, amongst many, many others. This game? Well, take a listen!
Where would I be without you? Right.
Size of him.
I didn't know they made him that big.
So, how do we take him on?
Carefully. One mistake could be our last.
Takedown!
Surprised we're still
This
standing.
is it! The ticket to getting our car back!
Yep, feeling pretty proud right about now.
I think I'm having a moment.
Yeah, we'd better hurry over to Cindy's.
Now tell me, how is that music not awesome? The soundtrack from what I've heard thus far is incredible, and I can't wait to hear what the rest of the game will have to offer once the game is finally released. When it comes to other sound effects within the game, such as gunfire, traversing through grass and bushes, everything is appropriate and they sound very realistic, like as if I would go outside and do this stuff in real life. Overall, sound is excellent. Next, let's talk about AI. The AI when it comes to the enemies is pretty good. They react to your presence, they see you in their line of sight, and they will start coming after you. And that is something I like. However, when it comes to the AI of your party members and your friends who party up with you, they need some work. They help you fight your enemies alright, and they do what they're supposed to do most of the time. However, if you are practically on death's doorstep and you're standing next to them, begging them to help you, they won't until like 20 seconds later. Another thing that they do, which is incredibly annoying, is that they have a tendency to block your path. This is very annoying, especially when we're trying to navigate through small and tight corridors. Overall, enemy AI is good, friendly AI needs some work before final release. Let's talk about the camera next. For a demo, the camera works fairly well. I haven't had too many issues with the camera whatsoever, however, it did become a bit stubborn when it came to tight spaces and small corridors. meaning it would get stuck on the wall quite often. But other than that, the camera works just fine, and I'm happy with the camera the way it is now. And hopefully the camera will be improved when the game is finally released. Now that I'm finished talking about everything else that I love about the game, let's go ahead and talk about some things that really need improvement. As I stated before, the AI when it comes to your friends needs some work. And I've also complained about your friends not picking you up despite being on death's doorstep and begging them to help you. What I would do to improve the game is make it so if you really are on death's doorstep and you are right next to your friend, they will stop what they're doing and pick you up as soon as possible, or at least get within a certain proximity of you. At least that's how I would do it. Next, when it comes to targeting acquisition, this needs some work. In the demo, you have to hold the R1 button to acquire your target. If you're playing on Xbox One, this would be the right bumper. But anyways, you have to hold it down for a few seconds while keeping the enemy within your line of sight. And even after you acquired your target, the camera doesn't follow it very well, if at all. What I would do to improve it is that you just simply push the target acquisition button, which would be either R1 or the right bumper, and that's it. The camera will be locked onto that target and will follow it, kinda like in Kingdom Hearts. I don't see how this couldn't work in Final Fantasy XV. As I stated earlier, your friends can block your way very easily, and this happens quite frequently, especially when it comes to small and tight spaces and corridors and such. This is incredibly annoying, and this really needs to be sorted out. Here's what I would do. I would make it so the main character can push his friends out the way and get to where he needs to go that much more easily. Another thing that I haven't pointed out is that the frame rate is a bit inconsistent. For the demo, I think the display natively is 1080p at least 30 FPS. Throughout many parts of the game, the frame rate does drop quite a bit, and it happens very frequently. Not as much as say single digits, but still, it does drop quite a bit. Hopefully when the game is fully released, this whole frame rate issue will be right behind us, and hell, we may even have 1080p 60 FPS. At least on PlayStation 4, not too sure about Xbox One. Now that I got that off my chest, it's time to talk about my final verdict. Despite many shortcomings that have been spotted throughout my play sessions of this demo, I'm still very happy with the way the demo turned out, and because of it, I am looking forward to Final Fantasy XV now more than ever. And from what I've seen and from what I've played from Episode Duscae, I can happily say that this looks like it's going to be the best Final Fantasy since Final Fantasy VII. I am dead freaking serious. Even though I never played Final Fantasy VII, I'm just saying it's going to be freaking epic. And with that, that is my first impressions with Final Fantasy XV. Now I want to hear from all of you. Are you too looking forward to Final Fantasy XV and its final release? Have you played the Final Fantasy XV Episode Duscae demo yet? Let me know in the comments section down below. I would love to hear your experiences and see if they are different from mine. Also, I have not mentioned this yet, but in order to get access to this demo, you need to purchase the Day 1 edition of Final Fantasy Type 0 HD. The demo will not be released in any other way, shape, or form. So yeah, that's that. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. See you all later.